Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the soundtrack for The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, released in 1991 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and composed by Koji Kondo. The album is available through the Nintendo Music app. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks I added to my playlist. 15 out of 31, so one under half. This album is good. It's very orchestral, so the music tends to slip into the background for better and for worse. This means there isn't really any super incredible songs here, but almost all the tracks are listenable, and the flow is pretty great. Coming in at 46 minutes, this is a decently long soundtrack, and it has the longest single track we've heard so far on the Nintendo Music app, the ending theme, which ends up being almost 8 minutes long, so a lot longer than a lot of the other tracks. There are definitely some iconic tracks on here, in addition to a bunch of the original Legend of Zelda themes, like the sort of overworld theme, underworld theme, and the fairy fountain theme. The Zelda's Lullaby melody originates here, as well as some of the original concepts for Kakariko Village and the Lost Woods. Although for the Lost Woods, the Ocarina of Time version ended up being much more popular, so some of the stuff here is not as familiar. You're going to expect a different song when you hear it. Overall, the style here is much more traditional for a soundtrack, more inspired by movie and show background soundtracks than the sort of techno foreground stuff of some of the other video games from this era, like F-Zero. Definitely good, although very few tracks here stand out from the crowd. It kind of is very flowy, and a lot of the tracks flow into each other decently, and they don't really stand out, which is not terrible, but also I would have loved to have a little bit more sort of interesting tracks that really make me listen more actively. My favorite track, though, is probably Ganon Battle, basically the final boss theme. It and Boss Theme, 16th track, are basically the only two more higher energy tracks on the album. The rest are sort of more medium to low energy. There's a couple of marches, and then there's a bunch of sort of low background music. And for the low energy songs, I will say Princess Zelda Rescued is pretty great, and the ending theme is a great sort of remix / medley, including the Legend of Zelda main theme slowed down and some other stuff going on there. So the ending theme is definitely a pretty good one. I rank this soundtrack best out of the 3 Legend of Zelda soundtracks I've heard so far, better than the first game's NES and Famicom versions. A Link to the Past is definitely better. It has a lot more going on and pretty much includes all the good tracks from the first game anyway, so it's just kind of straight improvement here. The flow is comparable between the two games, and the quality is definitely increased by using the SNES software over the NES and Famicom, so yeah, that easily takes the top spot. In terms of SNES rankings, however, I ranked this album last out of the 3 I've heard so far. Some of this is personal preference. I like the upbeat, risky albums like F-Zero a lot more than the sort of safer background orchestral tracks on Zelda, but I also think the level of quality on all 3 of these albums is comparable, and out of the 3, The Link to the Past is just the least interesting. It takes the most from the original game, more than Super Mario World, and while it does manage to make some new iconic tracks for the series, I think that both Mario and F-Zero are just more interesting on a track-by-track basis. The meh tracks on Link to the Past are just kind of boring, while the bad tracks on Mario and F-Zero are still interesting, even if they're bad. So, yeah, I think those two take more risks and thus get more out of their soundtracks. However, as the first and only Nintendo soundtrack on the music app from 1991, A Link to the Past takes the top spot for that. For the overall top album, though, it isn't so lucky. Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 keeps it, and yeah, that album is definitely a lot better and a lot more interesting than A Link to the Past, so that is a easy victory for that one. So thank you for watching. Next up is the last Game Boy game on the Nintendo Music app at this time, Kirby's Dream Land, the debut game. I'm excited for this one since I'm a bit of a Kirby fan, and some of the tracks here are definitely really good, so stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.